Good morning. Welcome to Smart Justice Works, presented by me, Makia Metzger, the Cobb County Solicitor General. Today, we have invited a very special guest, Senator Doc Rhett from Senate District 33. And I'm very happy he's here today to educate us a little bit about what happens at the lovely Georgia Dome, the Legislative House here in Georgia, and tell us a little bit about our bicameral system and what to expect with laws, which ultimately our office gets to execute and prosecute if that's what the legislature is asking us to do. Good morning, Dr. Rhett.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Well, we're coming up on Veterans Day this month in November, so I want to first of all thank you for your service.
Air Force, aim high.
And I believe you started that back in the 80s. You joined back in the 80s. I was probably in pigtails back then.
I don't know, but I'm still serving community and country.
As a senator. And, you know, a lot of people think that when you say Senator Doc Rhett, you are, I don't know, U.S. Senator. Can you explain a little bit what the difference is?
Yeah, I have a lot of people think that I go to Washington when we're in session, but basically I'm a state senator for Cobb County, Georgia, representing the southern and part of Powder Springs, Marietta, and a little bit of Austell. And when I go on to the Capitol, we're talking about the state Capitol
here
down in Atlanta.
Georgia, in Atlanta,
Georgia,
yes. That beautiful gold dome.
Yep.
And essentially, how many Georgia senators are there?
There's 56 Georgia senators representing the state of Georgia, and in the House, there's about 182 representatives representing the different districts. Each Senate district has about 190,000 people, where each House district has about 59,000. So you can see there's a large disparity there.
Okay. And essentially you're going to get what you're going to get based on how it's redistricted at some point.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about, I know we have a bicameral system back in the 1777. You know, that's when we had a unicameral system, and after basically moved the capital to Atlanta from Savannah, and you know, all of that good stuff. So we now have a legislative body that has the House and the Senate. And your duties, I presume, are different or sometimes the same, but can you tell us what those duties are? Basically,
in the two houses, the House and the Senate, what we do is bring about legislation that affect the people's lives across the state of Georgia. When you get an idea about a bill, what you do is you go and talk with your colleagues and legislative counsel to see if the bill is appropriate or not, and if it does what it's intended to do. And once you get that taken care of, let's say on the Senate side, I have to go to different committees, just like I had a bill one time working with women breast cancer. Women can get a free mammogram, but if they need something a more close picture, they'd have to get an MRI or an ultrasound. Well, first I had to go to the Committee on Health in the Senate to see how they felt about it and help me fine tune it. Then once you get it through there, you go to the general body, all 56 senators, and you try to get the majority of them to vote for the bill. Once it passes there, it goes over to the House, goes through committee, and then if it passes through there, it goes through the House, 182 people, 80 or 181, and you try to get the majority to vote on that, and then you send it off to the governor's desk. And hopefully he doesn't have his veto pen. I've experienced that one time, not with this bill, but my very first bill.
Okay, so and just to give us an idea, you guys have like 140 or 40 legislative days that you sit in the House starting in January?
Usually it turns out to be about the first 3 months in January, March, and April, first 3 months of the year. And we meet and discuss legislation, look at things that are pertinent to try to empower the people of Georgia.
About how many bills do you think come in to the Senate that probably just sit there? They might be good, but just because they don't get picked up, they don't go anywhere.
I've seen, they keep a bulletin board and counting the number of bills. I've seen thousands of bills go through. Everything from empowering people to vote to, I've even seen bills regulating frog jumping contests.
Okay.
So we can get thousands.
Or sports betting, which I think we heard about last time. So generally, correct me if I'm wrong, the chair of the committee would be from whichever party has the majority. Is that correct?
Well, you are correct. When you're trying to get a bill, you have to try and build a consensus on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, in order to get it to move through the Senate. And for the most part, we are about 99% of the bills we work together. There's an occasion that comes up from time to time where there's a bill where we kind of have to square off. But for the most part, we work together in order to empower the people of Georgia. Most of the bills is a bipartisan effort. And I've been fortunate to be able to do that and get things done.
Okay. What are you most proud of in terms of a bill that you have spearheaded, been a part of, and feel like you've done some really good work for Georgia?
Jack Hill Veterans Bill, Veteran Act. Jack Hill was the Appropriations Senate chair in the Senate, and he's a veteran just like myself, and we worked together on this bill that if you're a disabled veteran and you're attending the the technical colleges of Georgia, you can get scholarship money to go through school. And I named it after Jack Hill because we worked together on it, and he passed, and we were on the phone one night. The next morning he had passed away from a heart attack. So I decided to name it after him. And it's empowered a lot of veterans who are disabled to go get scholarship money to attend the Georgia technical colleges.
That is fantastic. And thank you for your work and continued service.
Another one I'm proud of is I work with Susan G. Coleman with a breast cancer bill. As I was saying earlier, women can get a free mammogram, but if they need something more to give a more accurate picture, they have to get an MRI or ultrasound. But in order to do that, they have to eat through their deductible, which can be thousands of dollars. And while you're waiting around, that breast cancer can metastasize in a hurry. And so those who are on state health care programs, as a part of their diagnostic, they can get an ultrasound and an MRI as a part of their.
When you say state health care, do you mean state workers or people on Medicare or Medicaid?
State workers.
State workers.
Right.
Okay.
So now our next goal is to try and expand it.
So basically, they don't have to jump through hoops for that next step. Early detection is part of the MRI evaluation also.
Right.
That's fantastic.
And people always say, well, Doc, how are you, a male, sponsoring this bill? I said, because it's not only a woman's concern, but it's a family concern and a community concern.
Cancer is very expensive. And I've heard that men can get breast cancer too. So it's not unusual for men to also be affected by that.
You've probably heard of John Schaff. He was a bad mother. I mean, Richard Roundtree. He had breast cancer. He's a breast cancer. He passed here not too long ago, but he was a breast cancer survivor.
Wow.
And he was a poster child, talking about men can get breast cancer also.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of those incidences.
That was the old song about Shaft's movie. Shaft's a bad. Shut your mouth. Don't talk about John Shaft. Talking about breast cancer.
Right. Well, it's very pertinent, very important, and early detection is always key. So ladies, go get your mammograms yearly, annually. It's very important for your health. And I wanted to kind of veer a little bit, and this is just my personal ask. As you move into session next year, do you think there will be any initiatives to help individuals who are unhoused and we see through the system with mental health issues?
Well, the previous speaker has passed legislation to put forth more money or funding to support police officers or anybody who encounters somebody with a mental health concern. Because a lot of times what happens, they end up getting treatment. The only way they can get treatment in many cases is if they do something and get locked up. But part of that money is utilized by Sheriff Owens, because now they have a mental health evaluation center in the local jail so that they can make sure people are getting the medication and the help they need, because a lot of them usually are misdiagnosed or undiagnosed.
I think that is a fabulous first step, but I also think there has to be something else where people can be in a residential facility, not jail. To me, it's very unfortunate that people have to be in the jail system to get that. And I guess my ask would be, would we be better served as a community if people can be served outside of the jail system with mental health care so that they can be functioning citizens in this county?
That's part of the funding is utilized from the speaker's bill, the previous speaker's bill, is to provide residential help for people, because I get a lot of calls from periodically to my office about where can I go to get mental health services for my child, you know. And so we put forth funding to support organizations in the community that can help people have an alternative.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not enough, but that's probably because the problem is so large.
And that's why next session we'll be looking at trying to expand that.
That is my hope. That is my hope. And I guess, what would you tell people if they had some questions or concerns about just understanding legislation? Is there a place that they can go to read about the laws and bring themselves up to date? Because we get a lot of calls when people don't like that they got a school bus citation because it's now $1,000. Is there any way that they can educate themselves short of my podcasts?
Oh, they can always call their local state senator or representative, and they will gladly take time out to explain to them. Also show them where they can go online, the website at the state capitol, to read up about different legislation. And if they have one they want to propose, they can always call us and we'll explore it, sit down with our legal team, try and put something together. Okay.
And I guess obviously we have a two-party system here in America, not 3 or 4. We don't have a viable Green Party. So we have Democrats and Republicans. Can you tell us what the makeup is in terms of the legislature and the Senate, who the majority party is?
In the House of Representatives, they have about 181 people representing the different areas in the state of Georgia, and each district is made up of about 59,000 people. Then when you go to the other side where we're at the Georgia Senate, you have 56 senators, and each district has about at least 190,000 people. And so if you have one bill on one side, you try and get everybody to agree, and then you go to the other side of the Capitol in order to try and get them to agree or help fine-tune your bill. And so it keeps us pretty busy.
Would it be fair to say that currently our legislature, Republicans basically have the most, I guess, representation in both the House and the Senate?
In terms of majority, in both houses, the Republicans have the majority. When you trying to pass legislation, you have to build a consensus and bring both sides together. And that's always a good thing to see both sides working together for a particular cause.
I absolutely agree. I think we have to move to a position of nonpartisan behavior when we are doing the work. I think it's absolutely important for us to do what's important for the people as opposed to just political gain. So thank you for that. Are there any other things you would like to add in terms of?
Just want to let people know that we do get along very well and work together down there on 99%, as I said earlier, 99% of the bills, because it's about empowering the people of Georgia. One of the big things we'll probably take a look at is health care, because that's a big issue across the state, for, providing opportunity for people to go to the doctor, get the health care they need. The governor has a program called Pathways, in which he's used that to try and work with people getting the health care attention they need. Also in the rural areas, you can have a tax deduction if you donate to try and help the rural hospitals. But what we'd like to see is to go a step further and just expand health care to people of Georgia so that they can. Because, one of the things we learned in the military during the first Gulf War, when we called people up, they didn't have a lot of health care. So before we could send them off to fight and train and fight, we had to send them to the doctor, to the dentist, because they didn't have adequate health care.
And when we talk about health care, are you talking about specific to veterans or all people in Georgia?
Well, I was leading up, started using that as an example. And so we came up with a program called Military Tri-Care that helps people to go to the doctor and dentist so that they can be prepared to go, if they have to do their duty. And we found out that good health is attributed to the success of the mission. So in the state of Georgia, to empower our people, good health is important to empower them so that they can be the most productive citizen that they can in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely agree. How many hospitals closed last year in Georgia?
I don't have an exact figure, but a number of them did, and a number of them are still reeling from the effects of COVID. Because when you don't have health care and you show up to the hospital, they have to take care of you, but there's a cost to the hospital. And they may get back maybe 70 cents out of a dollar, which is not enough to sustain them. So a number of them, as a result of that, had to
shut down. So we really are at a deficit of service providers in terms of hospital care, and hopefully that can be reimagined on a bipartisan level moving forward, especially in the next session, because we have moved back a little bit.
Well, we came one vote shy of getting it out of committee last session. One vote.
Okay.
So we're getting closer. Before it wasn't even close. Now we're getting closer and closer and closer. And next time around, maybe we'll be able to open the door and come on out.
And that is very hopeful. And I guess the only thing I can tell voters is call your elected officials and talk to them about things that are important to you. Because if they don't hear from you, then they're not going to obviously promote those issues.
And that's important because we need to know what you're thinking and how you feel. And that helps us when it comes to crafting legislation to help people.
I get calls every day about legislation people don't like. And I have to tell them, please call your legislator, because I don't write the laws, I just execute them.
Trying to pass legislation is like baking a cake. You have different ingredients, but you need somebody to say, well, maybe put a little too much of salt in there, or maybe not enough. And that's important for us to know at each step along the way as we craft the bill, how people feel about it. And so that way we can make the proper adjustment to make an appropriate bill.
Okay.
That reflects the people's will.
And finally, this is maybe territory we should touch on a little bit. There are two bills, I guess, that made it to the voting page where you have to look and determine whether or not you want to vote for the homestead exemption. I believe the legislator from Alpharetta proposed that, I don't remember the bill's name, and the tax court. Can you tell us a little bit about what the conversation was like when you guys had that on the floor for those two bills?
Well, when the homestead exemption hadn't been increased, they're trying to relieve the burden on homeowners. So you had a lot of discussion from that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other one you were talking about, the
Tax court.
Some people feel that perhaps having a tax court, we can relieve some of the cases that some of the other judges see and move it over to a tax court where you can have people who expertise is about tax.
Judges are very competent. They go to law school. Let me ask you this. How many cases do they have?
It's not that they're not competent, but they want people they want to relieve some of the caseload on some of these other cases.
How many cases did they have that they considered a burden on these courts? Do you know have any numbers?
They didn't give specific number, but they talked about just trying to relieve
the burdens.
Right.
Okay. And in terms of the concerns,
especially coming out of COVID, where a lot of cases were backed up, so they just want to try and make it a little easier to clear that log jam.
I don't think we have those problems in Cobb County in terms of backlogs, but some counties like Fulton might. I'm not sure if every county has the same issues. Have they considered the additional cost of a tax court to taxpayers?
That was taken into consideration, but they feel that overcomes that, so.
Okay. And would there definitely be an additional cost for a new court to run it to taxpayers?
I'm sure there will be.
Okay.
I mean, just.
I will end on that note.
No free lunches.
Right. Nothing is free. So I will end on that note. I think that it's important for voters to think about these things, obviously, because it impacts the way we do our work, and it also impacts the tax burdens, which I think everybody's concerned about things like that. I can't really think of anything else. Do you have any other words of?
If you ever have any questions, or if you have any legislations you want to propose, feel free to give us a call, and we'll sit down and talk with you. Our office's door is always open.
Thank you.
And don't forget Senator Rhett.
I knew you'd do that. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us and sharing some inside information about essentially what you guys do. Thank you for being on this podcast. And again, next time on Smart Justice Works, we'll bring another great guest and try to inform you of what's happening here in Cobb County and in Georgia. Thank you.